Trail talk time. Out on another lovely trail. Gorgeous evening right now. Nice cool breeze coming in. Today I wanted to talk about programming. I touched a little bit on it in a couple of my other videos. I want to get more in depth about it this time. You know, it's such an interesting topic. It's like we essentially start out this world as babies as a blank canvas, and we're just open to all these new ideas and concepts to be programmed into our minds. And they say the first 7 to 8 years of our life, we're essentially growing our subconscious mind. That's going to be like the template or the foundation upon which all these other programs are going to be, added onto. And, so much happens in those years, and they can still, affect us into our later years of life, and we might not even know why, but, there's patterns that continue to happen because of these subconscious programs that have been downloaded into us. And we start to learn from our parents and society and everyone around us at an early age, and we start to be molded and shaped in certain ways, and a lot of it might not be serving us up until this point, right? When we go to school at such a young age, usually starting at 4 or 5, or even kids that go to preschool earlier, we start to all learn the same things, which is a huge program for us. I like looking at the term history, breaking it down as his story, right? It's like there's so much that's happened in the years before we've learned this information, but we only get a tiny percentage of it, or a certain perspective about what's happened. And we all get taught the same thing, so we all have a similar idea about history depending on which culture we live in. And it's interesting just to learn about different cultures, because we can see, what's normal here, normal, might be totally, unacceptable or considered immoral or things like that in another place, another country, another culture. So it all depends on how we come up and the programming that we're given in our society and in our culture. There even back in Shakespeare's days, I learned from this guy, I forgot his name, but he was teaching about how they essentially used to force people to attend certain plays and stuff that were put on for the city or for your town, because they needed you to, get that program in you. So it's been happening for so long, before the days of TV, long before. There's people who have a lot of power that want to keep it that way, and so they try and program people to make us all predictable and act the same way so that they can control us in an easier way. And so it's up to us, when we start to learn about these things, to really take hold of our own minds and start to deprogram and reprogram ourselves, so that we're not just running on these same old loops over and over again that may not be the best for us in our lives. And so, some ways that have helped me is to just shut off all these programs that aren't serving us anymore, Stop with all the advertising and turn off the TV and start to program our minds for ourselves, choosing healthy, helpful programs to tune into. As Infinite Waters on YouTube says, we turn into what we're tuned into. He breaks down the word television, seeing how it tells lies to our vision, right? Or it tells a vision, but it might not be the most helpful vision to be implanting into our minds. And so I think it's important to really be discerning about what we're watching and what we're listening to, what kinds of media we're feeding our minds and our senses, and start to take care of our minds and program them in better ways. Advertisements do such an incredible job at digging into our psyche, right? I learned in marketing class how they really break down like something like Maslow's hierarchy of needs that shows what human beings essentially need in our lives to remain healthy and live prosperously, starting at like food and shelter and everything, and going out into these layers about our self-image in society and, you know, how we feel others are looking at us and judging us. You know, we all want to be seen as a part of the group, essentially, and feel that we're secure in our society. And essentially these advertisers start to break down their messages so that it becomes implanted into the deepest part of our psyches, so that we feel we're not secure, we don't have our needs met unless we buy into their ad or whatever they're selling, right? Unless we buy their product or service or whatever it is. And so there's so much of that that's just lingering in many people's minds from since they were little children. And that's where a lot of this unworthiness comes from, right? All these programs that tell us we're not good enough unless ... whatever their ad is saying. They all claim to have some miraculous thing that's gonna make our lives amazing and make us feel complete. And so oftentimes we can feel like we're not complete, we're incomplete if we don't measure up to some level of society's standards that they set within this media program. And it's so massive, like sometimes I just sit and really observe myself and observe the thoughts that come through my mind. And this is like such a key for helping to deprogram yourself, you know, just to meditate and sit and observe, you know, what are these patterns that are going on that we might not realize are going on all the time. I watched a video with Joe Dispenza the other day, and it was so eye-opening, right? He breaks down the way that our subconscious mind works, right? We start to relive these patterns from old memories that we have, and the ones that stand out to us are the ones that have this real big emotional charge, right? A powerful emotion to it. And so moments of trauma in our childhood, in our life, those ones stand out as these big emotional imprints that we have. And so they're like these energetic signatures that we keep on going back to and replaying in our memories over and over again because they're so strong. And if we're unaware of them and unaware of this chain of reaction, then we can get caught in this continuous loop over and over again, this cycle, which makes us psycho, right? And so meditation is so key because we're learning to detach from getting caught into that cycle and simply being with our true self, which is the observer, which can really start to watch and see all of these patterns playing out. And it's really interesting to watch, you know. You might feel this, a thought come up, and then feel this emotion that comes through you because of it, which adds to more thoughts along the same line, and it just keeps on perpetuating the same old thing over and over. But if we can learn to just let all of that go and start to retrain our minds by, you know, visualization we can start to project new energies into our future and, guide our energy so that our day is flowing in a new way instead of automatically going to the past when we wake up and then reliving the same old things over and over. If we can really put something beautiful, something healthy and helpful into our minds for the future and see ourselves having a prosperous, happy future, then our day can start to flow about in a new way and start to align with that future that we've seen and felt. I've talked about techniques of visualization where you really put yourself in the position as deeply as you can and start to feel every single sense. What does it look like to be in this position that I want to be in? What does it feel like? What does it smell like, sound like, taste like? And really start to feel yourself being in that tense, in that timeline. And so aligning with it in this present moment right now. And essentially, your mind doesn't know the difference between what's actually happening and what you're projecting in your mind. And so if you can do it as clearly as possible, then all of a sudden you're like changing your whole wiring of your brain and your body and telling it that it's having a new experience right now. It's having one that you're really feeling good in, right? You're giving yourself this really good feeling just by projecting an image or a scene in your mind. And then that becomes a new cycle that can start to play out, right? And it's a beautiful thing, There's this amazingly smart scientist from like the 30s. His name was Dr. Walter Russell. And he talked about meditation and two sides of the meditation. One being concentration, where you're really, using your mind focus to project something and visualize and set something into your mind. And then decentration, which is letting that go and simply being still, being silent. And in that space, you're allowing what you've just visualized and projected to start to come to fruition as you become the receiver now instead of the transmitter. And these are so key to really starting to shift our lives and shape them consciously in ways that we want, instead of just living unconsciously, not knowing why certain things are happening and living out the same day like Groundhog Day over and over again. It might seem like a bit overwhelming to try and shift and shape your whole mind, but the same as what I talked about last video about consciousness, right? It's all, step by step, day by day, we can start to make little changes, and eventually these little changes start to become, bigger patterns and then new habits in our lives. And it's amazing, you just start with something small, maybe even just doing a little 5-minute meditation when you first get up, instead of just waking up the same way every day. Make a little change as soon as you get up. Do something different. Maybe it's just sitting with your mind in silence and observing all these patterns that will start to arise. And then maybe, setting an intention or doing some visualization so that you start to get a new path going in your brain, in your mind. And it'll start to, guide you in certain new directions in your life. And, life is a great adventure, right? It's not like we actually want to predict everything that's going to happen in our lives, but it's really empowering to know that we have, the capability to live a life that we want to live, right? we can start to take hold of our energy and guide it and direct it into new ways, and start to really bring the things into fruition that we want to. But it just takes a little bit of training. Programming is happening every day all around us. They say there's a war going on for our minds, right? And that's what the Matrix was really about. If they can continue to install these programs in us, then they start to become real for us, and that becomes our reality. So reality is all based upon these programs that are running. But we can really consciously create programs that are going to serve us and our highest purpose. And I think the music we listen to is something that really, really affects us so deeply, right? We keep on hearing the same songs over and over every day on the radio, these top 40 hits and stuff. And big record labels and everything, they choose a certain type of music with certain types of vibes and lyrics and images to portray for reasons, right? They're trying to gear everybody's energy up in a certain way and have us all living on this same track over and over again, right? Listening to the same tracks over and over. And just watching TV shows now, I'm able to start to break down, ways that they try and program us. And I've learned about, a real simple one that they try to get us to get sucked into all the time. And that's being in this binary system of choice where you feel like you have to choose one way or the other, as if those are our only options. And we forget that we have so much more choice in life. We think that we have to buy into one of these choices that they give to us. And it's simply not true, right? And we see that with government, whether it be the left or the right side, the two major parties, in Canada and in the States. And those are the parties that just continue to be voted in because they have all of this budget for advertising, and they've been in so long that people just feel like those are the only two options, right? So sometimes people will vote just to choose one. They say like, oh, I'm choosing the lesser of two evils kind of thing. And so we get stuck in this pattern of helplessness where we feel like we don't have any choice. And we take on that victim mentality of fear, like, oh wow, we have no control over our lives. And this is living, without free will. But the more that we can willfully step out of that, observe these and learn from all these programs, and start to visualize and project our own, then we're increasing our willpower and we're empowering ourselves to really create the lives that we want to live now, instead of feeling like victims, right? We feel like we're the co-creators of our lives, and we really do have choices in each moment of our life. We don't have to go along with some certain way that's been going on, maybe just because others go along with it or something. We can do our own thing and swim in our own lane. Feels really good to just step outside of society's norms for a second and say, you know what? I don't have to be a part of the system that tells us how to be a certain way. I can be free in who I want to be. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share for today. Hope everyone has an amazing day. I hope this was helpful. Get out and enjoy this beautiful sunshine. Peace and limitless love.